years, I've never missed the opportunity to talk about our community, where we've come from, and the struggle to get there. Living in Newfoundland and where we live, it's not always easy because we don't have the Trans-Canada Highway or big service centers that's on our doorstep. We have to travel over 2 hours of a potted old road with a lot of moose that you can run into along the way. And believe me, I've taken out a few of them and lost a few trucks in the process. But that's Conne River today, from what it looks like today, and it's a far cry from where it was when I left Conne River in the early 60s. We had no electricity, no anything at all. We lived in deplorable conditions. And I was only 16 years old, and I got on a coastal boat to go to Halifax. And I was so amazed with, I could flick a switch and there was lights all over the place. I went around the boat flicking switches. Lights. And back in those days, if you were traveling, there was first class and second class. That's how you bought your ticket. Now, unfortunately, mine was second class, and not knowing the difference, when I went to get something to eat at first class table with tablecloths and silver and all that stuff, they kicked me out. Said, no, you got to go back of the boat and go down way down below. That's where you eat. And so I said, to hell with it. When everybody went to sleep, I went to first class and stole some food. Took it back to my buddies with his second class. That's how I lived on the way up the coast. Over the years, we managed to take a few things away from the province and make it work for us. One of the things we've taken over the years is the park that used to operate, and an interpretation center that cost the province of Newfoundland $2 million a bill. They ran it for 2 years, and I bought it for $1 for the band. And we now operate that. It's off reserve, but at least it's a piece of asset. And I bought the park for $1. So that's when they asked me how much you willing to pay for it, I said, if you can give it to us for $1, that's within our budget. We first started getting organized back in 1970-74, and our first funding agreement was with the federal government and the province. We were observers at that agreement table, but not signatories to the agreement. So when the province of Newfoundland wanted to take away $60,000 over top of a very little bit of funds that we had, we said no. Since we weren't signatories to the agreement, they said, well, fine, you don't get any money at all. And so they kept our money for 13 months, and in the process of that 13 months, my uncle, Billy Joe, who was the chief, died in a car accident a few days before Christmas. And I, at that stage, I was operating a front-end loader, clearing snow. And I walked into the building to see what was happening on that particular day. It was a band meeting, and they were going to nominate someone for chief. And I walked through the door, and somebody asked me, would you accept nomination? I never asked what for. I put up my hand and said, yes. After the election, my first thought the morning when I woke up, holy Jesus, what did I do now? How did I make this work? If my uncle and people before him couldn't make it work, how did I get money from the province of Newfoundland? So my first meeting with the province was incredible, because he said, yes, we'll release your funds. I whistled all the way back to Grand Falls, patting myself on the back. What an incredible negotiator I am. Imagine that, a heavy equipment operator could get that money away from the province. My uncle tried for 13 months and couldn't do it. And in the morning when I walked into the bank manager said, we had an order coming for your funds to be released. And then an hour later, another order to stop payment. We put up picket signs outside the government office, and we went inside the minister's office with chains and padlocks and food, bologna. intending to stay for a long stay to make sure that they got the message that we wanted what rightfully belonged to us. 4 hours later, we were dragged out by the RNC, told to go home, be good Indians. And I thought we were being good Indians fighting for ourselves. That was the start of an incredible journey for us in terms of building a partnership with our own community. When you have 100 people saying to the government very publicly that you're treating us terrible, what you have belongs to us, and you have to give it back. So we were taken to court, charged a $50 fine for mischief or something, and the judge repeated the same thing: go home, be good Indians, don't bother us. We then went on a hunger fast for 8 days, and at the end of 8 days, the province caved and gave us our funds. And that was because of those 100 people, children included. Our general manager today was 12 years old then. She's now our general manager. And what we decided back then, that if we're going to survive and build a community, we need to take away the education from the church. Back then in Newfoundland, the churches ruled all the education in Newfoundland. So we went to the churches and said we want to take control of our own education. We want to teach our own language, our own culture, our own history. And in this big long room, almost as big as this one, it seemed like, a priest was chairing the meeting, and he said to me, he said, "Chief, if you're fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to get your hands on education dollars, what are you going to do with it? You're going to use it for beer and cigarettes? Because you know absolutely nothing but education." The only response I could think of at the time was, "Well, Christ, Father, we can't do any worse than you've done." And in a month or so, we had control of the education. And I was, again, patting myself on the back for being such a good negotiator, not realizing that we got education simply because they thought we couldn't do it, not because they thought we could do it. And in a short space of time, we would have to give it back. Well, 30 years later, we still run our education system. We're producing, I say that word, producing lawyers and doctors and nurses, every profession that we need in Conne River to build a community. We are now training them, not just through universities, but technical colleges, and we've sent people away to work that we train as far away as New Zealand. Any place they want to go, we'll send them to work, and we pay for a portion of that so that when they come back better trained than when they left university, and we're still doing that. And that's our future. Those are the people that are going to make us go on beyond the 30 years and be a well-surviving community with the language and history intact 200 years from now. And that is the plan. And as you can see from our past, living in Newfoundland, in an isolated community, we lived off the land. We had no access to road to a community. We had to row for 2 days to go grocery shopping. We had very little education opportunities. Housing was as poor as you can possibly be and still survive. We had no employment. Today we have 100% employment, full-time and part-time. And one of the proudest things I could say to you is that majority of our workforce is women. They make it all work. And we had a poor reputation as a community, not because of our own doing, but simply because people was afraid to come to Conne River, afraid that those Indians over there were going to kill everybody. You would never be caught in Conne River after dark. And I can't ever remember anyone being killed, except for one or two maybe, you know. Nothing to worry about. But the reputation stayed anyway, and one of those people that got killed was a wildlife officer that threatened to bring in a man of war to cut the harms of our people that was there to go fishing in their river. And somebody accidentally shot him, buried him in the woods. Being good people, we couldn't tell who it was. We didn't know. The mystery is unsolved to this day. Our economy, fur trade. The fur trade was really what kept us going through all those years. And when the government of Newfoundland decided that they would flood our lands, they killed our economy. Not that the economy was that great, but if you went trapping, at least you can make some sort of a living from trapping beaver, otter, lynx, fox, all those fur-bearing animals that's out there. And at the same time, you can bring home wild foods, moose and caribou, all those things was all part of our system. And you can see from, sorry about that, you can see what Conne River looked like back in the, well, when I left Conne River in the 50s and 60s. That's what it looked like on the extreme left. And there was a sawmill, you probably can't see it, but there was a sawmill that was set up by a non-Aboriginal company that set up a sawmill on our land with permission of the old colonial government that did not imply any of our people. They cut their raw material off our land, sold their product using their own fishing boats, their own schooners, and none of our people was allowed to object to it. None of our people was implied in it. And we still call that place Conne Mill. Lots of horror stories that come from there. And today, if you go to the next slide, when we first gained recognition in 1987, we had 500 band members. Today on reserve we have 857 band members and over 2,000 band members off reserve. And as you know, there's a new band in Newfoundland. They call themselves Hollybu, but I think the word is caribou, so it's been Hollybu. We've created a business around Hollybu because everyone of that band, I think the last I heard is 20,000, probably going up to 100,000. And with Revenue Canada, I said, well, you have to have your goods delivered to a reserve to be tax exempt. And the only reserve in Newfoundland is us. So we went and talked to Revenue Canada. I said, if you're going to come in to manage all this, then you come in and do it. Otherwise, if you expect us to be managing this for you, then we're going to charge you a fee. And they said, well, you can't charge us a fee. It's the companies that are selling that product that you have to charge a fee to. So the first vehicle that got delivered paid us $100. As of today's date, we're probably closer to $200,000 in collecting fees from vehicles being delivered on reserve. We take that money then and put back into a fund to help young entrepreneurs on the reserve to start their own business using that fund. And it's our mission, and we've kept really close to doing that. And it's to preserve and promote and advance the culture, education, economics, social well-being of our people, including our language, history, and spiritualism, which is an important part of an Aboriginal community. Funding is one thing, having jobs is one thing, but if it's not well-rounded with all those other things of the spiritual well-being and that connectedness that makes a community thrive, it's all that's built into what we do every day. I meet our directors every day. I go to their office and I meet them every day. And on every Monday morning, they have to sit down at the table with us and explain what their last week's work was like and what the next week's going to look like. And our council is volunteer. They don't get, well, that's a lie. They do get paid. They get $100 a month. And my paycheck is $100 a month too as well. And the council can't give me a raise. It's the community that have to give me a raise. The community decides, and I've been there for 20 years and they haven't given me a raise yet. Now, as a counselor, I get $100 a month, but I do get paid as an administrator, which is a little more than $100 a month. But this is our organizational structure, and our biggest enemy we have, always have been, will always be, that we need to keep politics out of our business. We need to keep politics out of our housing. We need to keep politics out of young entrepreneurs that are trying to build a business. Our business is to help everybody as much as we can, when we can, but do it without having politics. Politics is for the council chambers when we deal with the outside world, the outside agencies and other business. The directors, we have 9, 10 departments. They're given the autonomy to do their jobs. The only time we get involved with them is when they don't do their jobs. And it works extremely well. We've put in place a new department last year. It's called Intergovernment Service, which is run by the director, a general manager, who deals with all HR problems. She reports directly to us and helps us to, and she briefs all of us on all the issues that come forward to our table. Even letters that come in from band members don't come to our table because we just send them back to the general manager and the director. Let them deal with it. That's what they get paid for. The only time we see those issues when they can't be resolved by any of those directors or the general manager. We are a one-party government, and it's so easy to become a dictator or a dictatorship when you're a one-party government. So what we wanted to do and continue to do is ensure that we're extremely ethical in dealing with our people, and we always look at our people as being the true government of Miawpukek. They're our government that tell us where we should move and how we should move on a regular basis. We sit down with them and do workshops, and we have general meetings 4 times a year when they come in and give us hell for not doing something, or like all government, you don't get many pats on the back, but we don't want them, as long as they agree with moving forward and building new businesses in an environment that's not exactly ideal. Economic development, and certainly I'm not the sharpest spade in the barn, but I'm surrounded by extremely smart young people that can make all that work. I'm the oldest counselor that's been involved since 1974, and when I said to the priest that said we knew absolutely nothing but education, he was right. I didn't, and I don't. But I'm smart enough to know that the person sitting next to me got to be 100 times smarter than me, and we've been able to do that. This year we have our first med student, and that's an incredible journey from 1985. We oversee economic development. We identify and develop business partnerships. Tourism is an important part of our business. We support entrepreneurs in our community through funds that we set up to do that. We passed a motion that all of our business in the community that can be done in the community is law. You have to go to people that have business in the community before you go anywhere else. Only when you can't buy from to our own community, then you can go to someplace else and get prices on goods that you need. We signed our first 10-year agreement this year. It's not a lot more money than we would normally get, but it gives us a longer time to plan for the future. So it's 10 years without negotiations. And this next slide, you'll see part of our outfitting, what we got started back in 1983 or 84. It's been a mainstay for us because our people was already trained in terms of the land, how to deal with the animals. The only thing that we had to train them with is to be, I guess, a good people person. You have to, those hunters are going to come in from the United States or wherever in the world to hunt with us, then they're coming in to have a good time, not just to hunt. And we also had to install in them that you're also telling a story, a history of our people on this land, why we're doing this. It become, over the years, a little bit of a cash cow for us. And, you know, when I'm saying cash cow, I'm talking about $250,000. And that's nothing compared to what we're doing now in terms of our wild bologna hunts. Expeditions on a wild bologna hunt is worth $10 million. I'm just kidding. Air charter, when we bought the business, we had to service our outfitting camps, our camps, and all of our trappers by chartering aircraft. We had one young fellow that wanted to be a pilot. Sent him off to school, got his license, then sent him off to work with another company for 2 years. When he came back, we bought a plane. He's now the chief pilot. We got one little plane, but we do service our own camps, and we service the surrounding areas for hunting and fishing. And I joke all the time because I take my private jet to St. John, 1 hour. As you know, we're not part of the Marshal. The Supreme Court of Newfoundland decided, in his lack of wisdom, to say that you're not part of any treaty in Newfoundland. It don't apply. If you want to be a part of the treaty, you have to move to Nova Scotia. Well, I think it should be. I think you guys should move to Newfoundland. Bring the treaty with you. That way it could work. What's that? More fish. Absolutely. You know, the funny part of this is that when the economy was taken away from us from our hunting and fishing, no one rushed in to help us in some way. When the bottom fell out of the fishery in Newfoundland, the government was all over it with something they call tags, helping those poor fishermen to survive. And we looked at that and said, well, there's a niche for us to get into. Well, they're off enjoying their tags money. Let's build a fleet. And let's try and find monies from wherever we can, using the fact that we don't have Marshall dollars. Start buying up boats that those fishermen are leaving behind and going about their business, getting drunk on tags. We start buying boats and buying enterprise. Today we're up to 10 boats, over 1 million pounds of crab, and an enormous amount of ground fish quota, cod, anything you would catch in Newfoundland, we can catch it. We're now looking at possibility of partnering with someone from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI. We want to build an 85-foot boat so that we can fish year-round and go after some of the things that we can't fish now, like tuna or swordfish and other species, the turbot. Our boats are only 44 11s, and most of the time during the winter, they're tied up at the wharf because they're too small. And if the other part of having a bigger boat, it's a live well, and we can transport farm fish for some of the farmers in the area. And the boat could be working year-round and catching quota. But I know that we can't build this boat on our own, and we can't fish it on our own. We're going to need partners to help us do that. So we're looking for someone that's interested in fishing out of Newfoundland. Not like what happened when the treaty broke. I think somebody from Shuby went fishing in Newfoundland, or was going fishing. And the fishermen in Newfoundland was up in arms and burned their gear and all that stuff. And I remember telling Reggie at the time that those guys are from Shuby River, they're loose cannons. He said, go away. He said, we're all loose cannons. He said, they'll be home. We have an arts and crafts business. Not that it makes any money. We simply have arts and crafts because it's part of our culture to make clothing, moleskins. We've looked at a number of ways of making it more profitable, but the women that work in the crafts said, no, we like what we do and how we're doing it. We don't want to use machines. Everything is handmade. And we sell a lot of crafts. We don't get what it's worth, but we enjoy, and the women enjoy, and the community enjoy being able to have that part of their culture maintained. We have a garage and gas bar, which again is when they come in to deliver those cars, they buy our tobacco, they buy our gas, all tax exempt. We wave when they're going down the road, thank you very much. A little more money for our pot. I mean, pot of... Slip of the tongue, I let the cat out of the bag. We have a building supply store where we build our own houses. When we first gained recognition, we were getting enough money to build 2 or 3 houses a year. And we figured out we have to build more than that. We'll never catch up with building houses. So we built a building supply store, and we figured out that if we stayed in business of building homes for our people, the first thing that had to go would be the politics. A person shouldn't never be able to come to the chief or councillors and say, you got to give me a house because I'm not voting for you next time around. So that's too bad you're not voting for me, but we can't do that. So we figured out that we can build 20 houses a year if we do it right. So we put in place a grant system for people. If you want to build your own house, we'll give you $6,000 to start out. And you can get all your supplies from our own building supply store, which again is set up as a credit line. And today we're building anywhere from 10, 15, 20 houses a year. And there's no free houses in Conne River. They're all bought and paid for by people because everybody works. If you have 10 people in the family, well, 10 people are working. It's not full time, but it's enough to build their own house. They can buy a nice truck if they want to. They can buy a fast skidoo if they want to. They can buy all the things they need for their children. Because we employ everybody. Everybody shares in what little wealth we have, and it helps the community grow. And we found that if you build your own house, you're more than likely not going to come running to us to help you maintain it. You'll maintain it yourself because you're buying it. We charge a service fee. We don't call it tax, though. Dirty word. We call it the ownership of a water treatment plant. We have one of the best water treatment plants in Atlantic Canada. And our people pay $150 a year for that service. And it's all about putting something back into something that you own. It's your plant. It's providing you with clean drinking water. So $150 a year is not very much, but at least it gives you a little bit of an ownership to that plant itself. And then it's working. That without a little argument in the beginning. Why should I have to pay that? We're on reserve. That's a tax. No, it's not a tax. It's a ownership. And please, when you get outside this room, don't refer to it as in Conne River to pay a property tax. Cablevision, we had no communication. We set up our own Cablevision so that people can play bingo. That worked out really well. It was just before election. I got re-elected again by acclamation. Of course, living in Conne River, it's an incredible place to live. But it has its disadvantages because we're so far away from mainstream, one way down and one way back over that road that's full of potholes. I wrote a letter to the Premier Wells, and I asked him years ago when he was the Premier, when are you going to pave the road into Conne River? And his response to me was, the provincial government of Newfoundland have no intentions of paving a road into Conne River. After all, in Conne River, and that's where there was a stop. He went on, after all, there are only people in Conne River. What he didn't say was, after all, in Conne River, there are only Indians. We have no intention of building a road. And when Brian Tobin came down to look for our vote, I said, the first friggin' thing you got to do is build a decent road into Conne River, a paved road. And he said, yeah, not a problem. I'll do that. That's one of my promises I'm going to keep. And a month after he was elected, I was sitting at his desk and reminding him of his promise, and he got mad, started to swear, and said I was in there trying to cause problems and I should go on home. He said, I'll build you a road. I said, no, I want a commitment today. And he slammed his fist on the table, got up and left the room, went into his office, and he came back out again and said, come with me. And a stubborn streak in me. I said, I'm not going with him. He got probably 10 people in there ready to beat me up. So I had a drink of water, and I said, well, what the hell? I'll go see what he got to say. And when I walked into his office, he was pointing at me, and he said, listen here, I've only been here a month. You have to give me time. So, well, how much time do you need, to get some money to build a road? I mean, you've been in business of being in government, not necessarily the Premier, for the last 25 years. You know the Prime Minister, you know everybody in the federal government, you know everybody here. And he said, I'll get your friggin' road. I said, well, that's all I needed. And I said, the other question is, when? He said, this summer. I said, okay. When I was walking out the door, the phone rang in his office. He said, there you go. He said, that's the Prime Minister now. I had no way of knowing it, of course. He was probably lying to me. We have to be very creative in our business, in finding ways to make it work. And certainly having a community as a team sometimes helps and sometimes it don't. Because every business we do, we have to take to the community to get their approval. And you get a room full of people, even this size, and everybody got a different view of how it should be done. So at the end of the day, we have to look at all of the suggestions, some of them are not very nice, and put it together and see if it's worthwhile venture to get into. And we look at whether they're culturally sensitive, historical sensitive, all those things that make us unique as an Aboriginal community in Newfoundland. And those are some of the things that we're challenged by. Of course, dealing with government is not always easy, particularly a provincial government that believes that we got no business being in Newfoundland anyway. According to the history, books were brought by the French to kill the Beothuk people, which is a crock. And we all know that, and they know that, but they like to use it anyway. And to improve the Economic Development Department to ensure it remains progressive, we embarked on a training program that trained all of our people to do every job possible. When we first gained recognition, we were told by the federal government that you can't build your own houses, you can't do your own construction. We have to put you all on welfare. That's the amount of money you're going to get. We can give you infrastructure money for the first time, but this is welfare dollars that you're getting. And someone asked me a long time ago if I ever read the Indian Act. I said no. Don't intend to read it. Don't know what's in it, because if I do, I might be afraid to do anything. And if I cross the line, we have legal people that tell me you better back away a little bit because this is not within the Indian Act itself. So we've worked outside of the box within the Indian Act. And we got into the Act simply because we wanted to negotiate our way out, and we're in the process of doing that. We're into our... Thank you. And people ask us, why in God's name do you want to get in under the Indian Act? I said, well, we want to get in because that's the protection for our people. And once we're in there, we're telling you right now, we're going to negotiate our way out to something better. We're into our 5th stage of negotiations and self-government. The next big one for us is funding. If the funding level is no better than we're receiving under the Indian Act, then why do it? Because right now we're self-governing as much as we would be under self-government. We've been doing what we want, when we want, and how we want. We never listen to the federal government anyway. We build our own roads, we put in our own water sewer system, we build our own houses, we build our own buildings. Is there flaws? Of course there is. But the beauty of it all is being built by our own people. And in the process of doing that, they're learning some very valuable tools that they can take with them to wherever they go. And we sometimes point out the flaws to people. If we want to build a house, is it a perfect house that's 100% true blue economic-wise? No, but we try. But in trying, it's our people that are building the houses, providing food, shelter, clothing, support for their families. And that's the bottom line. It's nice to have a nice house, but it's even nicer when you have your own people building it. One of the big things that we got into after registration was taking welfare dollars and turning it into job creation. That's why today we have 100% employment, because we use welfare dollars to create work. And at the time when we did this, our pay for our people was more than what the province was paying in their labor rates. Now, unfortunately for us, the province have gone out and become richer by discovering oil and other minerals, and their wage rates have crept up. We're finding it hard to maintain that level. But there's still people in our community that are making $17, $18, $20 an hour on some jobs. And everybody works. The only people that don't work are the people that physically can't work. Our caseload, if I remember correctly, is about 10, 12 people social. Everybody else works. They have no choice. If you don't want to work, then you're going to be on $85 every 2 weeks. And you can watch your buddies go to work, watch your buddies buy a car. Don't take long before they're at the door, so I want to go to work. And now the federal government is using our program to promote across the country this type of job creation. And we got into it simply because we didn't know any different. We've always looked after each other, and so it was easy for us to do that. If you've lived under a different system, it may be a little more difficult to do, but it's not impossible. Prime Minister Harper, I don't know about you guys, but I don't care too much for Mr. Harper. And I don't care if you tell him that. But he did make an announcement and referred to Conne River in the program that we have been using. And they're modeling one of the programs after what we've been doing, which we was told to be legal when we started. And in the partnerships, you can see the partnerships we've been able to develop over the years. Canadian Helicopters is simply in Conne River because we trained the pilot. He's my first cousin. No, he's not the pilot because he's my first cousin, because he got trained. So I want to make that known right up front. He went off, took the training. We got him a job with Quinlan's. Quinlan's is owns a fish plant and all kinds of boats and quotas. So Quinlan had their own helicopter. As part of his training, we got Quinlan to give him a job, and we paid for his wages during the summer. That's how he got his hours as a helicopter pilot. And after 2 years working with Quinlan, he applied for a position with Canadian Helicopters, is now flying for Canadian. And we have the hangar in Conne River. And that's our partnership with Quinlan. He rent space from us. Miquelon, St. Pierre Miquelon has been an important part of our life. Our people went to Miquelon for marriages, for burials, baptisms. There was no priests. So our people, particularly after 1610, followed missionaries to Miquelon, and in 1849 or 47, there was 25 families, Mi'kmaq families, living in Miquelon. They have a Mi'kmaq burial site in Miquelon. And so we have a MOU with Miquelon to promote tourism. The only problem we had is coming from Miquelon, you had to go to Fortune through customs and come all the way back to Conne River. We didn't have a wharf, so we now have a wharf. The next stop for us is to go after customs, to have a temporary customs office set up in Conne River, so people from St. Pierre Miquelon can come directly into Conne River, and that'll cut out the rum running business. No more rum running. And Parks Canada, we partner with Parks Canada. Some of our people work with Parks Canada, and they're coming to the community. Husky Energy is another one that we have people that graduate from our school go off and work with people like Husky. We pay for part of their salary. Then if they do well, then the companies pick them up and they go on their payroll. So that's part of our education. Grey Aqua is a fish farming company from Woodstock, New Brunswick. Right now they're going through some terrible times, but I think they'll survive. We are now into discussions with MUN to do first year university in Conne River. And it looks promising, but we need a new school. And that's the other part of negotiations. Newfound Resources is where we sell all of our fish and partner with them, buying boats and buying more quota. We have an RCMP officer in the community. That's another partnership that we do. And we certainly are partners with the new band, the Caribou Band, through a couple of different levels of partnership. One of them, of course, is charging them for delivery of their vehicles into our community. The other one is looking at the aquatics of Newfoundland shoreline. Green crab, for instance, which is coming from the boats coming from overseas, dumping their bills, and the green crab is slowly taking over, and they'll destroy everything that gets to their path. They're not very big, but they're very powerful. We were in the fish farming business going back a number of years, and the Chileans start dumping their salmon and their trout into our markets in the United States. It got so bad for us that we couldn't even sell our trout for fox feed. Nobody wanted it. And we lost $3 million of community money. And I remember the public meeting saying to them, we just lost $3 million of your money in this fish farming business. And somebody in the back of the room said, who the heck is responsible for that? I said, it's me. I have to take responsibility for it. But guess what? We are going to find out how we got into this mess, and we're going to find our way out. So we put a team of people together, and in 5 years, we recovered our funding that we lost, but still maintain services to the fish farming companies through rental and services in that nature. But the valuable part of that was that we knew if we got in trouble, we know how to get out. We wouldn't let INAC come into the community to dictate to us how we're going to recover that $3 million. We said, thanks, but no thanks, we're going to do this on our own. And we did. It wasn't a pretty sight for a while, but it did work. The first thing I had to do was lay myself off. Then I laid off all essential staff, and the only thing that they had to do was they still had to show up for work every day. And they did. I was amazed the next morning when I walked into work, and all of our staff that was laid off was still at their desk working. And that's how we was able to start our process of recovery. Everybody took part in learning the process that we're going to get back to where we need to be. So, a valuable lesson learned. Right now, we're collaborating with Bell Alliant, Problems in Newfoundland, HINAC, COA, in putting in a fiber optic cable into Conne River. I think Peter Panassi is going to be here, if he's not already here. Before he left politics, he found monies to put into a fiber optic cable into Goose Bay. So when I found out, I went to see him, and unfortunately for me, he was on the way out of politics. But nevertheless, the idea was that if you can do it for Goose Bay, you can do it for us. And just recently, now they haven't announced this yet, but they're working on it. The minister was in Conne River 2 weeks ago, and he said, we found $750,000 for your fiber optic, but we can't talk about it yet because the COA is still working on it. So when I met with the minister, he said, how slow is your system now? I told him it's 2 steps above smoke signals. That's how slow, that's how slow it is. We're presently negotiating with a company in Fort McMurray. And again, that's to provide services by our people, flying them out, flying them back, do the kind of work that they're doing, construction, technical work, anything that we can get our peoples out doing. We train them, we want them to go to work somewhere, whether it be in Fort McMurray or other places in Newfoundland, other places in the world. We're negotiating with a company from South Africa that wants to build a processing plant in Conne River. And again, we're doing it very cautiously, and if it looks good and we can profit from it, it's something that we want to do. And those are private business that we have in the store that we are helping to support in any way we can, trying to keep our monies within the community and circulate as much as possible is one of the ways of making it all work for us. It's not an ideal situation, and it probably wouldn't work everywhere, but because of where we are and our semi-isolation, it do work for us, and we've been able to plug a lot of the leakage in terms of monies going out into the larger non-Aboriginal communities and keeping that money within the community and employing our people. 100% employment is unheard of in Newfoundland. I don't know about the rest of the world, but it's unheard of in Newfoundland. And I'm really proud of that. If I do nothing else in my political life, I'm happy to wake up every day and know that people are working in our community and retiring and going to school and going off for higher education. They're learning the language, they're learning the history, and all those things which is important to us is what they're doing. And with that, Wilalio, thank you so much.